sin una buena razón y luego no les da pena decir que no tenemos corazón. Pero mirándose bien en el espejo, ¿qué es lo que miran en su reflejo? Un ser humano que nació y es despreciado por el color de su piel y sus raíces, porque hablan diferente y son de diferentes países. No nos dan trabajo ni beneficios por ser ilegales y no más por eso los quieren clasificar como criminales. Pero les voy a decir algo, si acaso no se han dado cuenta, ¿saben por qué tienen comida en sus mesas? Por nosotros, los latinos, le damos nombre a eso que le dicen los Estados Unidos. Si nosotros no hubiera sus smoothies ni casas, y señor presidente, no se le ocurra decir que si nosotros menos gastas, porque tu economía sin latinos, sin pensar, se va a la basura. Los latinos son la luz de este país y sin nosotros puedes caminar a oscuras. Pero ya no vamos a soportar todo su racismo y, señor presidente, todo su machismo, porque enfrente a la realidad más les va a doler cuando un latino les quite su poder, porque vida no es vida sin un latino, como la ves, señor presidente de los Estados Unidos.
I hope nobody got offended by that one. That was very good, by the way. Roxana is a high school student, so double applause for that. Excellent job. Y ella es estudiante de high school. Como se darán cuenta, algo del trabajo está en español y algo del trabajo también va a estar en inglés. Algo del trabajo va a ser de los propios escritores y también algunas personas van a leer trabajo de otros escritores. As you already know,
American prophet, the Amy Goodmans and others, you see? How do you support them? How do you ensure that people listen to them? And Brother Michael Moore is a master at this. He's able to use the market for non-market aims. That's very important. Markets are here to stay. They're here to stay. How do you attenuate the worst consequences, the inequality and so forth and so on, the isolation that they often promote? You see? And so that's part of the challenge I think we have both to our children as well as our young children. Of course, anything you tell your children at the deep level, you're telling yourself. Because you in no way embody fully the best of what you're saying to your children. You see? Is that begin to get at that question?
I'm going to paraphrase 5 questions that said, is there anything we can do about Ralph Nader?
No, I mean, I just love the idea of Ralph going around the country and articulating his progressive vision and analysis of American empire. And I think his voice is crucial, indispensable. And he has been, as I said before, he has been an exemplary citizen for decades. For decades. I happen to disagree with my brother in terms of practical judgment at this particular moment in the American empire, you see. And in that regard, it means that one must debate him. One must convince persons who are persuaded by him that their practical judgment is wrong in your view. And I would publicly debate Brother Ralph today in the same way I traveled with him in 2000, out of respect, but also acknowledging this moment is one in which there must be an anti-Bush united front, Brother Ralph, that Bush is that dangerous, and that I've got to try to convince those who follow him in argument. But as I said, what I don't like is the kind of trashing and ad hominem attacks on Brother Ralph. It's just because he wants to pursue what he wants to pursue doesn't make him some grand egotist or anything. He's just wrong in a practical sense at this particular moment from my point of view. That's all. And it just means I've got to work even harder to convince his social base that they're making a mistake. That's what happens in a democracy, you see? And this is very important. Why is that so? It's because Brother Ralph Nader is going to be on the side of progressives as the conflict intensifies. And a lot of the followers of Kerry, who I happen to be on the edge of the tent with, a lot of the followers of Kerry will willingly smash progressives in other contexts. And I'm aware of that. But politics is, in fact, this uneven, heterogeneous development. See, what you mean, Brother West? It's complex. And sometimes you have disagreements and agreements with comrades. So it's not a question, so much, they raise it like, you don't want to say what to do with him. He's got a disease. What kind of cure do we give? No. We're not the doctors. This is citizen to citizen, soul to soul. What the white average man say, person to person. Person to person. Argument, push. And I hope in the coming weeks that discussion becomes even more intense, especially in those swing states. Especially in those swing states. And many of us are actually going to go to so-called Nader enclaves and make the argument of what is at stake without lying to the people. Kerry's just grand, progressive. No. He's pro-imperialist. He supported the invasion of Grenada and Panama, Iraq, and so forth. I have no illusions in terms of his particular neoliberal position within the larger context. But there is a difference between milquetoast neoliberalism and dangerous reactionary politics. There is a difference. Not as much as I would like, but there's still a difference.
As a 21st century philosopher, what do you think the most crucial issue we need to focus on as we think about changing our country?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I don't think there's just one issue. I really don't. I think those who are wrestling with the ecological crisis are doing magnificent work and need to continue to focus on that. I think those of us who are giving a certain kind of focus to white supremacy is still alive and well. You know, Jim Crow's dead, but Jim Crow Jr. is still around. De facto racial segregation still around. White supremacist stereotypes still circulating in the larger culture and so forth. Those wrestle with male supremacy, those concerned with the disabled, those concerned with workers' movement. We had a wonderful dialogue in the cafe with two brothers from the trade union movement. I don't know if they're here, though, but I think they said they were going to be here. But we had a 2.5-hour dialogue just drinking coffee. And when they told me of the work that they're doing here in Seattle with 1199, this is very important. This is crucial. It's one of the last of the civic associations that elevates public interest and common good at its best across race, across color, across gender, that allows for the overlapping and the convergence of women and so-called peoples of color, gay brothers and disabled and so forth. So I don't think there's just one issue at all. And of course, in some ways, it's shaped by events too, because you're responding not just to an issue in the abstract, you're responding to particular events. I mean, I would hope, for example, you get trigger-happy policing in Seattle and police shoot a black brother in the street, all of y'all would be at the demonstration against police brutality. At that particular moment, at that event, you got to come together. You see? Got to come together. If 1199 calls for a strike, you don't have to be a member of the trade union to support the strike. You march along with the trade union activists. You all come together. You know what I mean? Somebody they bash a gay brother or lesbian sister, everybody ought to be at the march. Straight, quasi-straight, transsexual, whatever. So it's a moral and political question, and it has to do with events. And of course, right now, I mean, there's so many things coming at us that I think it's a bit abstract to say, well, I really think the most important event, the issue, the overarching issue that somehow is the one that we all ought to be focused on is X. No, I don't do that.
How do we know that the terror czar they're talking about won't become a czar of terror like J. Edgar Hoover and produce more terror?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And of course, the only thing that stands in the way is a just rule of law and an informed and active citizenry that's willing to organize and mobilize and constitute some structures of accountability vis-a-vis that mainstream, you see. I mean, that's all that the demos has ever had against elites, right? Set up a rule of law for some accountability, and you have organizations that can project your vision and constitute a countervailing force, a counterbalance to elite power. You see. That's why the future is always unfinished and incomplete, because it always depends on what the demos does. Depends on what we do, how strong we are, our organizations and institutions are. And the strength of our organizations and institutions are predicated on how much courage we have, what price we're willing to pay, what cost we're willing to bear, you see. And if it's clear that the demos becomes more and more complacent and conformist, the elites, they run amok. And that's what has happened in the last 25 years or so. They run amok. Greed, fear, avarice, all the things that shot through most of us. Now, I know there's some saints here. I won't get into that at the moment. But most of us, we got the same kind of...
Margie's travel to verify my passport. And again, we have to always authorize people how they can use our information and what they can do with it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and authorize Margie's Travel to make sure that my passport is up to date before I travel out. Again, it's gone out to a government web service. They've checked and seen if my passport is still valid. And it turns out that my passport's actually going to expire while I'm traveling. So what Margie's Travel, as a service to me, a consumer and a citizen, is offering me that they'll say they'll go out and they will reapply for a passport for me electronically.
Now, without that government service, it could have put a warning there that said, hey, Dave, don't forget to check your passport.
Right.
Then onus would have been on you to go look at that paper booklet, understand its needs, potentially physically go to a location,
Exactly.
get that thing updated and the like. Whereas it's doing all of that for you because of that government service that provides that kind of information for businesses like Margie's Travel.
Exactly. In this case, my government does offer this service, so Margie's is going to take advantage of it. But in those countries where they do not,
Very
you just have to
cool.
go the same old route. So I'm going to go ahead and authorize Margie's Travel to apply on my behalf for a renewal for my passport. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to authorize them to do it. And again, now Margie's Travel is going out and interacting with a government web service to reapply for
Very
a
slick.
passport. So we've got a message here on our status bar saying that the passport has been renewed and that the UK government agency will send the passport to my physical address that they have on file.
That is very nice.
If only it were this easy today.
That's great.
So the next step is that we're going to go ahead and get the visa requirements and see if my travel visa is valid for the traveling that I'm going to be doing. And in fact, it comes back after checking with a web service exposed from Tanzania that my visa is in fact valid. So this is an example of where Margie's Travel is going to go out and deal with yet another government and another web service to provide me with a more seamless experience.
Great.
And again, if this country doesn't offer these services, I may have to go and do that by mail, using paper, fax, or whatever we do today. So I'm going to move on to the next step. The next step is that Margie's Travel is actually going to go out and look and see if my records are up to date and all of my immunizations are up to date for travel to Tanzania. Now, it turns out that to travel to Tanzania, it's recommended that you get these various immunizations and vaccinations listed here.
Clearly a wild place, huh?
Yeah. What I'm going to do is authorize Margie's Travel Service now to go and ask a couple of questions of my medical records to see if I have these and they're up to date.
So here you're going to branch out to a physician's office?
Exactly. Now we're moving away from the government web services and actually going to my physician's web service exposed out of his office.
The alternative is that you try to call your physician's office and get them to physically check some paper file.
Exactly.
But this is an up-to-date physician who has decided that they want to offer this kind of service, and no matter what their systems are, they can use XML as a tool to pass that data back and forth.
Exactly.
Great.
XML allows us to interact with any other web service or any other system, regardless of what applications are running on that system, what platform they're running on,
Right.
what software they're running. So I'm going to authorize Margie's Travel Service to check and see if my immunizations are up to date. Now, it's important to note that Margie's Travel Service doesn't actually get my medical records. All they are able to do is go out and say, has Dave had his yellow fever vaccination and is it up to date? And in this case, it comes back that my yellow fever vaccination is actually out of date. So Margie's Travel now has gone the next step and has actually gone and looked at my physician's calendar, again, using more web services to see what's available on my physician's calendar that's also an opening on my calendar that I have online. And this brought back a couple of these options for me before I leave for
Very
Tanzania.
nice.
So I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these appointments. And Margie's Travel, again, using web services, has gone out and actually now booked this appointment for me to get my yellow vaccination,
convenient.
yellow fever vaccination updated
Super.
using web services. So the last step in this process is to go ahead and actually purchase the ticket. We've gone through and renewed the passport and checked the visa and
Great.
checked my medical records.
Very
We're going to go ahead and buy the ticket now that we know everything's okay. Now, Microsoft Passport has my credit card information on file. They know which credit card I like to use for these types of things. They're going to go ahead and use that to purchase
You've
this
given
ticket.
them the approval prior to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's one of the services that Passport offers.
Yep.
To summarize what Margie's Travel has done for us today, we've actually purchased a ticket to fly and go see the Commonwealth Games in Tanzania. We've also renewed my passport. Remember, it was going to expire while I was traveling, so Margie's Travel has gone out and applied for a renewal on my behalf, and that'll come to me in the mail in the next couple of days.
Thanks to the UK government that they had that capability.
That they exposed that to private companies and other governments to use. I've checked my visa for travel, and again, this is using a web service from Tanzania, the destination country. I've also booked an appointment with my doctor to make sure that my yellow fever vaccination is up to date. Gone out and done that automatically using web services exposed by my doctor's office. And then finally, obviously, we purchased the ticket, the payment was processed, and our job here is almost done. The last step in this process, obviously, is to sign out. And using Microsoft Passport, when I sign out, I take my information with me so that Margie's Travel no longer has access to it anymore.
Got it.
So again, Passport allows you to access who touches your information, what they can do with it, and how much they can see. So I've gone ahead and signed out here, and my travel is ready, and I'm going to take off to Tanzania in a couple of weeks.
Super.
Great.
Great demo, David. Thank you very much. So what is Microsoft doing in regard to trying to encourage the use of these kinds of capabilities and tools? First of all, we're developing a platform based on XML as an open standard with which you can pass information along, often referred to as Microsoft.NET, to make these kinds of applications far easier to build than ever before. E-government strategic initiatives, such as the one you see here between Microsoft and the UK, are designed to simply provide examples of what you're going to be able to do and what you can do today and what you'll be able to do in the future. Second, Microsoft provides a website called MSN, which is the #1 website on a world basis, and a lot of our partners, be they countries or be they individual organizations or whatever, often take advantage of that portal as a tool worldwide in order to attract customers to what it is they have to offer. Thirdly, Microsoft is seriously committed to the public sector to provide the kinds of services and capabilities that we're talking about here with respect to the UK, but we're really talking about them in a very general sense for all kinds of organizations, be it a profitable organization, nonprofit organization, or a school, education system, a government, whatever. Microsoft has offices in 59 countries, so we're fairly broad at this point in terms of providing those kind of capabilities. So what's the real opportunity for cities, for regions, for individual countries, whatever, with respect to these technologies? I would encourage you to take one or two of those areas and jump on this bandwagon and become a real leader and model in the use of this technology. Provide citizens with great news services that will surprise them and cause a lot of creativity to go on with respect to other things that can be done. Invest in telecommunications infrastructure. That comment I made before in terms of participating in the global economy is dependent on participating in the global communications capability that exists today called the Internet. Use the technology to improve education. Most countries are jumping all over this because it is a very robust opportunity. And last but not least, simply encourage ideas on how to use these tools and capabilities, which will, as we said in the very beginning, continue to grow in terms of their impact and in terms of their capability. With that, I will conclude, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Well, first of all, our appreciation for a stellar presentation, you and your team from Microsoft and Terabeam. Mr. Herbold has agreed to stay for a few minutes here and entertain your questions. Cliff Traisman has a microphone and will assist you for any of you that would like to ask Mr. Herbold questions. So please just raise your hand. Our new Seattle Art Museum has one of the richest collections of Northwest Coast Indian, African, and Asian arts in the country. We have our zoo, aquarium, children's theater, art galleries, shopping districts, and public parks that provide leisure activities for the whole family. Greater Seattle has a highly educated workforce and rich tapestry of heritages and cultures. We have an excellent K-12 education system. No other state in the nation has a higher rate of high school completion. Seattle ranks in the top 5 among all U.S. cities in percentage of adults who have completed college and in the percentage of professional and technical employees among the general workforce. The University of Washington, I mentioned earlier, has an outstanding 4,000-member teaching and research faculty. The institution is known for its leadership in health sciences, research and education, law and business, as well as for its colleges of oceanography and forestry. Among private institutions, Seattle University, Seattle Pacific University, the University of Puget Sound, and others offer undergraduate and graduate programs in a full range of disciplines. And finally, the region's community colleges and vocational schools provide liberal arts education, technical and occupational training, and continuing adult education. We are a center of people and culture. Virtually every language in the world is spoken here. It is a city and region where all international visitors can feel comfortable. We welcome the cultures and languages of the world. Our region's communities maintain more than 30 sister city, county, and port relationships with regions all over the world. Many of you here are representatives of those sister city, county, and port relationships. We have more than 20 consulates and a number of foreign trade offices located in the region. Our appreciation of the languages, arts, and cultures of the world is reflected everywhere in our day-to-day lives, in our schools and offices, in our museums, our theaters,